So my name is Bobby Lansing at Data Guy Bobby on Twitter, as well as Rumble. And today I'm going to walk through the the template app that I built. This is for internal tooling. So the idea here and the theory that I'm working with is that there's tons of opportunity out there for companies to be leveraging AI to build out, automate workflows and all of those sorts of things. There's a bunch of no code and low code tools that'll help you do that. They're all pretty expensive. And when I got into it, when I finally started implementing those for a manufacturer client of mine, I just found that I hit roadblocks everywhere I went. Eventually, I was writing code. I was writing JavaScript automations for these tools, which didn't make any sense. I thought this was supposed to be low code, no code. And then I was going to have to pay per automation that was running, per seat, per app that was deployed, all of these different things. It didn't make any sense to me. So what I've built is an internal tools template. Now, this is going to be obviously more hands-on and more difficult to work with than just a regular no code or low code app. But if you're a medium-sized company, even some small companies with, a data person, an IT person, you'll be able to figure this out pretty quickly. It's not only going to save you a ton of time, but also it's a lot cheaper to host. And so I want to walk you through what that looks like for me, and then and how you can get access to this repo and pull things down. So the repo is here. I will share this link direct with anyone who reaches out to me. Please DM me. Just give me, all I ask is give me your use case. I want to know what you're planning on using this for. I can obviously help if you need. Otherwise, I'm going to give you all of the tools in this stream that will allow you to do this on your own. So this repo here is my internal tools template. We're going to fork the repo. So we're going to use this template and create a new repository. And in this case, I'm going to call it demo internal tool. I am not going to share what company I'm working with or working for here. This is just just going to be, I'm just going to show you an actual use case with this app and how I would use Cursor in order to optimize or to build out the internal tooling that I'm talking about. This internal tool template has a few things in it. It's got OAuth with Google and Microsoft. That means you can use your internal Microsoft 365 account or your Google Workspace account in order to log in. It's also got username password authentication if you want to go that route. That's personally not my preference. Most companies are using Microsoft or Google now, so that's really where you should be. Leverage those. It's a lot easier to use to log into the app. We've got team management. So as the first user or as the super admin, you can create a team and then bucket kind of accessibility, visibility by teams. It's compliant with row level security and Supabase, so everything gets hosted in Vercel as the front end app, then with Supabase as the back end or the database, I should say. The back end is also, so the front end back end would be hosted in Vercel. $10 a month gets you plenty of compute over there. And then Supabase, again, $10 a month, and you've got a nice Postgres database with a ton of features they keep adding out there. I need to get like an affiliate code for both of these because I really want to push them. They're awesome. I deploy and run a pretty intense or complex SaaS application in both of those, and I'm really only paying $20 a month between the two of them. I may have increased my database size in Supabase, so I might be paying 20 over there, but really it's $30 compared to what I would need to do in AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure. I'm saving a ton of money, and then it really helps, especially for a small team or a company guy such as myself, where I'm just deploying things for people to check out, and I'm not necessarily at really big production scale. It's you can start small and then scale from there. All right, so Vercel and Superbase definitely should check them out. This app is a Next.js, uses that framework or that library, whatever it's called, but it's Next with TypeScript. So you'll hear that this is pretty common, especially with Vercel. Vercel does really good with these types of apps. And and so what I've done here is I've forked the repo, or I've copied it. It's a template repo. So I've generated a new repo. I'm going to pull open GitHub Desktop, and I'm going to clone this repo locally. So I go here. Let's go add clone repo, and we're going to call this demo. demo internal tool, and clone. All right, so it's cloning. We're going to give that a minute to run. Now I'm going to open up Cursor. And I'm going to open that folder, demo internal tool. Right, and everything's booting up here. Okay, so now I've got the full repo here. It's got a .env example file with dummy credentials. I'm going to show you how to really flesh these out. There's a lot in here. So if you want to run, if you want to take advantage of all of the different features that are in here to include Google OAuth and Azure Active Directory integration, then you're going to have to create apps in those individual platforms. It's something that's pretty easy to do. You can find most guides in here. I even have in the docs folder, I've got a guides folder that that kind of talks to you about how to set up. And you'll find those are pretty straightforward. There's some permissions to set and things, but you'll get to those pretty quickly. As well, if you've got an SMTP that you can use for sending emails, you'll want to put all of that information in here. And then finally, Supabase. Now, I like to host Supabase locally. I think it's much easier than connecting to like a live Supabase instance. And they use Docker containers for that. So, so let's get into it. Let's configure our Supabase to get that running. So first, I'm going to open up my terminal. I'm using Node, and so I run npx commands with Supabase. So in this case, I would say npx Supabase start. Well, first of all, actually, let's stop. Let's do an npm install. So you want to install um, all of the requirements here. This in the package.json, you'll see all of the requirements, all of our dependencies, dev and prod dependencies. I actually can't remember if npm install does dev dependencies as well. So we'll do one more command here. But I do npm I gets us kind of in the door on installing. But now we're going to do a dash dash include equal dev, and that will also pull the dev dependencies. So once this finishes installing, I'll run that new command, and that'll make sure that we have those other dependencies as well. All right, so this is going to take just a moment to get going. While this is happening, let's head over to Supabase and start a, let me think, do we do that? No, let's go to portal.azure.com and let's set up our app registration. So this is going to allow you to then OAuth into your internal tooling app. So if you use Azure, go ahead and in the top bar type app registration, and you'll see that one of the services there pops up with it. We're going to do a new registration. I'm going to call this internal tool demo, just so I remember what it is and to remove it later. And now I love this part. Who can use this application or access this API? We can say accounts in this organizational directory. So for me, that would be Phoenix DataWorks. That's my company. So that'd be single tenant, or we can choose multi-tenant if we want to choose anyone who's in Microsoft, or even allow personal Microsoft accounts. In this case, I'm going to keep it single tenant only. Now the redirect URI down here at the bottom is optional. We're going to fill that out in a minute. I'm just going to register this app to begin with. All right, so when I register this app, now I can see the full uh, description here or what's going on. So let's, I've got client ID, object ID, tenant, etc. I'm going to bring back up Cursor. I'm going to do side by side here. And we're going to fill out some of our .env. And actually, so we're going to copy and paste the env example. Let's call it .env. There it is. And then we're going to put some of these details in here. And like I said, I'm going to delete this later. So, no concern if I leak some secrets here in the live stream. So under Azure AD tenant URL, at the end there, I'm going to append, instead of tenant ID, I'm going to actually paste my tenant ID, which is we call it UUID. It's a complex, long series of a random series of letters and numbers. Then we're going to choose the application ID is the client ID. So we're going to choose that one. and then paste that one in as well for Azure Active Directory client. We don't have a secret as of yet, so we're going to go to certificates and secrets, create a new client secret, and then we're just going to give this a name. We're going to call this demo. You can give this an expiration date. If you do, you'll have to rotate it a certain, every 18 months or 24 months or whatever. We'll say 24 months for mine. My app probably won't live long enough for that to be an issue. Now, the secret, we see the value here. So I'm going to copy that to clipboard. Oftentimes, you can only see this value right now. If we refresh this page, that's going to be hidden and we will never be able to retrieve it again. We'll have to create a new secret if we lose that one. So just keep that in mind. This secret is only visible now, so it's good to copy and paste it right now into your env file. All right, so now let's go back to overview, and we got to actually maybe it's branding and properties. We can upload a new logo file. That just makes it a nice user experience for when people sign in. So we're gonna save that. What I'm really looking for though is API permissions. So we got to set some permissions, and then we also are going to need to set our redirect URIs so that we say, hey, this is the approved redirect URI for this app. So what I'm going to do is mirror the configuration I have in a different app. So I'm going to pull that up on another screen here, and then I can walk you through which permissions we need. All right, perfect. So we need user.read. We've already got that one on. Now we're going to add 3 more, and they're into the Microsoft Graph API selection. So at the top here, oh, here it is, Microsoft Graph. We're going to say these are, which one is it? Application needs to access the API as the signed in user, or it runs as a background service without a signed in user. I'm looking to make sure, I think it's delegated is what we want. We want email, OpenID, and profile. Add those permissions. And then finally, we're going to hit this grant admin consent button for your company. So when we do that, then we should see now 4 different sets of grants there. Those 4 are now granted. That includes user.read. Okay, so now that's really all we need to do there. Oh, actually, sorry, there's one more. Let me go to authentication. Here it is. Okay, so we go to authentication and add a platform. This is going to be web, so we're building a web server. And now we need the redirect URI of the application. And so in this case, we're going to use the callback. So what happens in Supabase, so we're using Supabase auth here. We redirect from our front end application, we redirect to wherever our provider is, so Google or Microsoft. The Microsoft will then return the token for the authenticated session to our Supabase instance. And then the Supabase instance will redirect to the application. So imagine there's kind of 3 different pieces happening there. So the redirect URI of the application needs to be the Supabase instance. In this case, for localhost, it's going to look like this. Localhost colon, and this is a port number, 54321. That's our local um, auth service running by Supabase when we turn it on here. And then /auth/v1/callback. Okay? And that is what we need in order to have the callback work properly. Now, of course, when we go to production, we're going to need to add a URI here for our production Supabase instance. But we'll worry about that later for now. So that's all we need to do. Now we are ready to OAuth with Microsoft. So it was pretty simple. And it's going to save all of your users a lot of trouble. All right, so it looks like our npm finished here. We're going to now do our include dev. Our npm install, just make sure that we are all up. Yeah, it looks like npm install did include the dev, so that's great. Okay, so we're looking good now. And we've got some of our credentials or our environment variables created. Now we're going to go npx supabase start. I already have an instance running, so it's just going to immediately give me the details back. However, if you don't, it's going to download a bunch of Docker containers, and it's going to then kind of restart. If you have former Supabase instances locally, you're going to need to do a Supabase DB reset, and that's going to format. It's going to remove all the data that you have in your database, and it's going to rerun all of the data migrations that we have for this application. So keep that in mind. That's an important one to have to think about. Is that you do need to reset your database. All right. Things that we need to pull though when we do a Supabase start, we need to pull the next Supabase URL. In this case, it's localhost 54321, or you could also see it as 127.0.0.1 colon 54321. They are the same. They point to the same thing on our local machine. There's also an anon key. Now, I have no problem displaying this here because, again, this is only running locally. There's my anon key. There's also a Supabase service role key, and we're going to copy both of those and put them into our .env. All right, the site URL, everywhere you see it's going to be localhost colon 3000. That's where we're going to host our application. SMTP, I'm not going to worry about right now. Where you see super admin emails, you can just put your email address. Ideally, and honestly, I'll be honest, I'm not sure if the template is doing this right now, but what it should do is reference that list of emails, and then use check against those to see if you're a super admin. Then it gives you additional permissions. I actually think that in this case, our template is using a field in the database, so I'll show you how we're going to set that field so that that'll allow you to create teams and do different things in the application. All right, and now we're set up. So we have our .env running. We have our Supabase instance running. So now we're going to go npm run dev. That's going to get the local server started on our machine. All right, and I'm going to click that localhost 3000 link there. And we get a sign-in screen. All right, there is an issue. We're going to ignore that issue for now. I'll get these things fixed. They're probably just small issues in our repo that need to get addressed, but we'll worry about those later. Sometimes if I refresh the page, they go away. It's probably something to do with this invalid refresh token and those sorts of things. That's just old session stuff that's stuck in my browser. So most likely won't happen on your first run. One thing to note is an environment variable that we have here is called public app name. And we set it to internal tools in this case. This is obviously our demo, but you can easily change the name of this app just by changing that environment variable. All right, I'm going to hit sign in with Azure Active Directory. This is going to redirect us to that Azure AD account. And then, again, what happens is it then responds or returns a session token from Azure to the Supabase instance that's running locally on my machine. And then that redirects us. Then that says, hey, you're signed in. Now you can access the app. So just a few things about the app before we get started with the full demo here. So we're still just getting set up, but as you can see, it was pretty straightforward to get started. We've got a neat little sidebar with our logo at the top. You can easily change that logo here in the public folder. We've got favicon, we've got logo square and wide, both in dark and regular formats. We've got then nav items along this left side. Now this left side we have dashboard, and if you see, we've got settings here at the bottom as well. And then we're going to add additional pages in here for different tools, different workflows that we want to automate in our company. The dashboard just has a generic message in the middle that says, hey, we're building this out. There is a notifications service in this app, so you'll see new notifications. As we decide to add notifications to the queue, they will display here. And ideally, those will be displaying in real time. So we're using the real-time capabilities of Supabase to subscribe to changes that occur within certain tables, and we'll get those data changes in real time in our app. We've also got a light mode and a dark mode. I'm going to keep it on dark mode just for my eyes, but the light mode is also an option there. A lot of times users will prefer that. We've got a full screen button. What we'll see is that any page on our app can go full screen, which is really cool if you're displaying info to somebody. We also have a chat. Now, this is a pretty basic capability to start, but we can create threads within this chat, respond in line with those threads, and it's all going to be in a side panel. Now, most of you are using, Slack or Teams or something like that. So in the future, if you want to take that out, we can set a variable to toggle that on or off. Ideally, in my mind, we would actually try to integrate with those services, but that's probably a bigger effort than we're ready for quite at the moment. And then finally, we have our little user icon widget at the top, which allows us to change some things about our profile. Uh, you can see we can enter our full name as well as select a team. We don't have a team quite yet, so let's start there. So what I want to do is show you if I go to the local host or 127.0.0.1:54323, that is the project, the Supabase instance that will allow us to edit or view our database. All right, so we come in here to 54323 and look for profiles, the profiles table in the table editor. And then scroll all the way to the right on your one user. See where it says is super admin. We want to flip that to be true. Now this is going to be the easiest way that you give yourself super admin rights in the app, and that will allow you to then create teams. We have to create a team first, which is something I probably need to fix in the app here, but ideally then in this interface, then you'll say create a team and you can add people to the team and those sorts of things. All right, so for now though, we don't have any teams. We're not going to worry about that. That is a thing I'm going to note right now though that I'll fix about this template app. There will be changes and improvements coming to that template app as we go. What I really wanted to do is just get authentication as well as the overall structure built so that we can start building some capabilities for our company. Now, anytime that you build with Cursor, you always need to start with an idea of what is the problem I'm trying to solve and what is the user experience, what should it be in order to solve that problem. So in this case, we're going to flip to plan mode. I have this thing called plan mode in Cursor. I can't remember now if I created this or if if this comes by default anymore. Unfortunately, I've kind of forgotten. But basically, plan mode says, "Hey, I just want you to think about and plan architecture for this problem that I'm trying to solve. Don't change any code. Don't make any changes to any files." So in plan mode, typically I'll go with an O3 model. That's a nice one that will be able to view lots of context within our app as well as make smart architectural decisions. All right, so the problem that we want to solve, and I'm just going to put the problem statement here. I need to plan crews for PSYOP. Now, PSYOP in a manufacturing context, we're going to bring it up here just so you can see what I'm trying to solve here. PSYOP is sales inventory and operations planning. So I need to plan crews for PSYOP against machines. And I'm going to reword this problem statement here. I'm just kind of starting to think about it for the first time, to be honest. So we have machines, crews, and business days available. Each machine runs for 8 hours a day, but only on business days. And we plan 6 to 8 crews each month based on the demand for that machine. All right, so there's some implied things in this problem statement that we need to think through a little bit. So we need a table for machines, machine name, hours per day that it runs. What else would you put into this? Maybe a unique ID. We need a table for business days, so like a business calendar, which will include holidays, weekends, and a custom definition of months. And we could even say, for example, February 2025 is January 23rd to February 23rd. It's kind of arbitrary. We need to be able to have that level of granularity in our business calendar. Um, then a planning table to plan the number of crews per month allocated for each machine. And actually, then the one thing that we're missing here is demand, which is an external table we will bring in that details the hourly demand per machine per month. So, okay, so I'm kind of giving Cursor a little bit. We're gonna have to iterate on this prompt just a little bit, but we'll say, create a plan to add these tables and an interface to allow what if planning for crew number. We should be able to save the results and have them persist for future review. Okay, so there's a lot of kind of implied and explicit tasks in there. We're going to let Cursor and O3 really work through this for us. The idea is that this is an internal problem, right? This is not something that I necessarily expect my ERP software to solve. This is not something that no code, low code apps have been proven good at, specifically because there is a cumulative sum that's required in this problem where you're going to where we need to cumulatively sum the number of the demand by month, especially for even for demand that's in the past. And then we're going to figure out, all right, if we don't solve for all of that demand this month, how much spills over to next month and so on. Like when are we going to catch up with our demand? So that's what we want to look at here. Um, and we're going to take a look at Cursor's plan to solve this. So here's our proposed SIOP crew planning extension. We've got machines, they'll have a UUID, a name, hours per day. So this is, if you're an internal tool person, a workflow automation person, and you're not familiar with maybe like software concepts or database concepts, I really encourage you to get used to them. I think that it's better and more worth your time to do that than it is to just spend your time in low code, no code apps building out schemas. It's a very similar process, and yet once we have our data and our visualizations in our own tooling, we can do so much more with it than we can with some of those no code, low code apps. All right, so we have our machines table. We have our custom months definition table. All right, so that's not bad. We also have a business days table, which is a calendar, date table that shows, and then we'll say, is it a business day or not? So basically, are we working that day or not? We have machine demand. This is an imported, refreshed externally. So that's actually something that I have in my data warehouse. So I'm going to have to figure out how to get that data from my data warehouse into this app. But that's okay. That's a good problem to solve. We can basically put a view on our data warehouse and then import it maybe every few hours. Or we can run cron jobs in Vercel to force the sync from that data warehouse into this app. Or we can even query it directly using our backend here in Vercel. So either way, we'll look at some different ideas there. Then crew plan scenarios. So this is enabling what if scenarios. And this is where we're going to save our data and then our crew plans. So crews per machine per month per scenario. And then a derived view read only. And so then this is going to be let's see, machine capacity view. We'll have to have some RLS policies. and then build a migration file, though we don't want, so we always want to say this, it's in my cursor rules, but for some reason it's not triggering. I guess it doesn't trigger on planning, which is we use a declarative schema. Do not create migration files. I'm going to show you what a declarative schema is here in a minute. Backend services, we're going to use Next App Router, which is perfect. It's going to create some different TypeScript files for us for scenario planning. A front-end interface, this will be our what if planner. And then some sort of ETL demand import. So we'll have to figure that one out as well. And then finally, incremental delivery plan. This is just something that that is always created by like an O3 plan of how are we going to do this? Okay, this is how we're going to do it. And I'm going to now say implement this plan. All right, so this plan then is going to create some files for us. What I'm going to start with though is we're going to go to the Supabase folder, open up schemas, and take a look at this. So these are all of our schemas. This is a declarative schema. I absolutely love this. This is a pretty new feature, newer this year for Supabase. Let me find you a good one here. Here's a great example. So basically this declarative schema declares exactly how we want our database to, the state that we want our database to be in. Migrations, however, get us from original state to the desired state. So migrations will be a function of the difference between the current state and whatever changes that we're making here. Whereas the declarative schema is like, this is exactly how we want this table or this setup to be. So first thing that we see here, each user is going to get a role. It's going to be user, planner, or admin. That's good, so we can actually gate some of our features and just have them. If you're a planner, then you can make changes. If you're just a user, you're only viewing the plan. Those sorts of things. We also have a new PSYOP planning schema that's been added here. So we've got the machines table, the custom months, the business days, the machine demand, the crew plan scenarios, crew plans, and so on. So we're going to let this cook for a minute here. It's creating now a PSYOP planning service file. All right, so the idea here is that maybe we're not experts in coding, right? But we know what the business problems are that we need to solve, and we know how to get from here to there, or we don't know how to get from here to there, but we know what the right answer is going to look like. So the idea is now using this template app, you've got secure authentication, you've got team management, even some notification and chat services. And now you can start to build out your own tooling within this app and at a greatly significantly reduced rate. So in this video, what we're going to do is just finish once we have some semblance of a working product. I'll go and refine it a little bit more, and I'll do a different video on refining that, just so that you can see what's that process look like and how do we really get into making sure we're not delivering really sloppy code. And then we'll do a final video that's how do we actually deploy all these services and start using them internal to our company. So just keep those in mind. This will be like a 3 or 4 video series to show how we use this. And what I want to do though is just kind of let this thing cook for a minute and get through some of the initial development, and then we'll come through here and we can critique exactly what it's done. While it's doing this though, I'm going to show you in our package.json file, we've got a lot of different scripts, and a lot of these scripts are to help automate working with Supabase. So this one that I really like here, again, working with our declarative schema, we need to run npm run Supabase migrate diff with little colons in between. What this is going to do is compare the current state of the database to the desired state based on the schema changes that were just developed. And it's going to write a migration for us so we can get from A to B. All right, so it's creating a shadow database. It essentially creates another database, builds a database based on our schema, and and then looks at the current database that we have running locally and does a diff between those two. it creates a migration file. You can see here's the migration file. So we're adding some different tables and different things. And then it asks, can we run this? Can we run this migration locally? So now we've got, not only do we have a migration to locally, but also it's already been applied to our database. So now if we look here in our database, we've got all those new tables: machine, machines, demand, and so on. All right, even on our dashboard now, we have a new button called SIOP Crew Planning, manage crew planning scenarios for sales, inventory, and operations planning. Now let's see if it's working quite yet. It's not, it's still building, and that's okay. We want to give it a minute here. It's already trying to build out documentation. Usually the way Cursor works is it'll hit the documentation phase at the end when it's built everything already. What we want to do then is start queuing up some messages with errors. So here's our first error message. We're trying to import a component that needs use router. This only works in a client component. So we're going to actually, I know the solution to this one, so I can save ourselves a little bit of time. This is components custom. So let's go to components custom. We have some guidance in the Cursor rules for this repo to try to separate the base repo from the custom work that we do. That'll help when you do an upgrade in the future. When you do an upgrade in the future for the base repo or from the template app, that things don't get too messed up. All right, so let's look at SIOP scenario list. And if I go, looks like to the very top here, it's that use router. So in this case, next apps require this little command at the top called use client. And that just forces this page to be rendered client side. All right, the next one is SIOP planning service is having an issue because Supabase doesn't exist. So it's actually called client, I think. Create client. Let's take a look. So we have actually this somewhere else. Let's see. It'll look something like this. Now again, this is why we have some files here for you to work with to see maybe the pattern, the code pattern that is ideal for this specific repo. Not ideal that you would be editing the files in this way. What I would typically do is just copy this error, paste it into Cursor, and Cursor will realize what the changes that needs to happen pretty fast. In this case, though, I think I can solve it myself, which I always like to do just so I can stay up to date into exactly what my repo is doing by adding this little tool called Create Supabase Client, and then we see right here, constant Supabase. Put this right here. Now why? Let's see. Static async. So it's within this actually. So it's like that. And then this one, same thing. It's really everywhere throughout. Okay, so this was a good one that we probably should have had. That we should have had Cursor solve just because it's a little bit more in depth of a problem and it's throughout the file. But what this does is it creates what's called a Supabase kind of like connector essentially, and then we use that connector throughout the rest of the app to transact with Supabase. So in this case, make database calls. And you can see this the format of how we then transact with the database. We're selecting from tables, we're pulling data, Go. Cursor's really nice because it gives you these little tab options. It was originally called cursor tab for this reason. And we can see here that it's giving us the ability to just tab to complete whatever it is that we're trying to do. There we go. Right, almost done here. I know this part's not very exciting, but we got to get through some of our build errors, and then we can start worrying about solving the big problem, which is did we actually create a tool that our company can use? Right? So that's the next and probably more important problem that we need to solve. I'm going to fix the rest of these in chat. I think the cursor will be able to solve those pretty quickly. So let's let that run for a sec. All right, so we talked about how we you know, pull this app down, or how we fork the repo, how we get it started, and how we essentially get it running locally. Now we've talked about a little bit about how we actually make changes. Now there's a concept started by indie dev Dan that I heard that I really liked, which is when we're working with an AI coding tool like this, there's three things that we need to provide: context, model, and prompt. The three things that we need to focus on. So context is how much information is in the prompt. Are we giving it the right context within our code base? We can obviously tag files in Cursor, so it makes it really easy to go at and a certain file. That is adding context to our prompt. Model means which model have we chosen. In this case, we've chosen auto, but originally we chose O3 because it's really good at planning. And then prompt, how much information are we including? What information are we not including that really can help us as well? Those are things that we want to consider. All right. So as that finishes, and actually it looks like that finished, now I'm getting a different error on the side here. What I'm going to do is just copy this error, paste it in, and without saying anything, just say, here's my error, solve it. What we'll find is happening here is that this is in our library Supabase server. We're having an issue with how we import cookies. So, so we're going to let Cursor solve this one real quick, and then I think we'll be ready to start playing around in the interface. So it's been about 40 some odd minutes now, 42 minutes, almost 43. We have a running repo. We are making changes to it. Look, the page now can at least load a little bit. We're almost there. And once you get through this kind of tough part of working with it, then we're actually going to be able to play around with solving our business problem. So stick with me. I know this part can be a bit boring. Though, if you want to be an internal tools automation kind of person in your company, then this is the tough part where most people give up, right? I don't know what the code is doing. I am confused and things aren't looking right. We actually need to learn a little bit of the coding. We don't want to be completely naive to how it's working or what it's doing. So this is kind of the tough part about staying focused. Don't go to Twitter or Facebook or Instagram and get distracted by videos. Stay in the code and figure out what it's doing. Don't give up on it quite yet. All right, cool. So now I have a page that loads. What we can see, changes that were made here, is that we fixed how the server client or the user interface client was being built and how it gets instantiated. So how are we transacting with the database? So that got fixed here in our code, which is great. Um, and that has allowed us to build out our scenario. Now, here it says create scenario. We're going to set this as the baseline scenario, and I'm going to call this test. And really, that's all it's able to do, right? So it's just saying, hey, we created a scenario, and that's it. Now, we trying to view the scenario, now we're hitting more errors. So that's okay. Let's work through those before we give up, because I can tell you right now it probably hasn't solved my problem. But before we start making changes to it, let's get the code in a working state first, and then we'll fix it. So here it says, hey, we're going to need the use client command as well for this crew planning grid. Okay, now I have a new error. Again, I just copy and paste these in. Cursors, they've done a really good job with the models and with cursors prompts to fix these problems very quickly. This is just a page component that's not working properly. Let it run a little bit. The page component is passing an onSave event handler. Okay, cool. So now here we have our issue has been resolved. Now this is our scenario. So our scenario is now here, and we're seeing it, right? However, we're probably missing the important data in our database, right? We don't have any of that crew planning demand stuff. So let's go in our database. I'm going to do this manually. In the future, actually, let's do this. We need a an interface for CRUD. CRUD means create, read, update, delete. The following tables. We need machines, because I need to add machines. We need business days. Custom months. Machine demand. Use drop downs for related fields. So we're creating a comprehensive CRUD interface for managing our SIOP planning tables. What I will also do is add another button on the side here. So we'll have dashboard, and then we could have another thing like SIOP planning over here. Maybe it doesn't need to be nested under dashboard. That's what it is right now, but I don't really like that. So we'll want to change that. What this is going to do is give us a table where we can actually input data, right? What I would typically be doing right now, and I'll show you, we can do this pretty easily in this interface. If we're just prototyping, it's fine just to get things moving and see if we can solve the hardest part of our problem first. And then you can always go back and add your CRUD tables later. In that case, for machines, we will just come in here to Supabase, click on the table, and hit insert a row. And this, we just give the name. We'll call it machine number 1. Hours per day, we default to 8. And then ID will automatically be filled in. So I'm just going to hit save. Now we have machine 1. Let's also insert machine 2. And I'll hit save on that. Okay. So that's how we would typically do this. But I'd like to see the interface that's being created here. And then, we'll see. Oh, all right, so machine 1 and 2 are now showing in our crew planning grid. Let's start with custom months. It looks like that's the relationship that we need. So we need like February 2025. And we'll start that on, I click the little calendar. I'm just going to start it on February 1st and end it on February 28th right now. But I know that the business that I'm working with on this needs more dynamic definitions, and that's kind of a finance thing. The finance calendar is a little bit different than our normal calendar. And that's pretty typical. So we like to build in any automation or any flexibility that we can to solve those problems. All right, so it looks like we're done on this side. Let's take a look at our interface now and see how can I edit our let's see, how can we edit our calendar? Da-da. This is actually getting a little bit pretty close. I like the way that it's displaying the months. I don't have a demand quite yet. So let's here and access the interface for these tables. I'm gonna say to CRUD these tables. Right. Okay, cool. So it says access path planning slash data. Let's see if that gives us an interface to work with. It's a little bit of a different interface, so kind of interesting here. We've obviously had a fork now where cursor has kind of duplicated our code. So that's something that we'll want to correct because in SIOP planning, I don't actually see that data. Oh, here it is, manage data. So the button was added. Oh, I see. And this is now managing, this is data management. So this is like master data management, meaning what's the master data is like the official kind of slowly changing dimensions that we're defining about things. So in this case, lookup values. So machines, machine 1, 8 hours per day. Machine 2, we'll say 7 hours per day. And we're going to update that. Looks like update's not working, but that's okay. Let's keep going. Custom months, we've defined a few. Let's define one more. We'll say April 2025. And then we'll go April 1st, April 30th. And then finally, looks like we're failing to save here, um, which which I'll look into in just a moment. Machine demand. So that's the big one where we want machine, a custom month. And in this case, I would import this data from somewhere else. But in this case, what I want to do is actually just input it via this interface. Now we'll fix this error real fast. It looks like we're getting a 403, which the new row violates the security policy for the table. So now let's talk about RLS a little bit. RLS called row level security. It's on by default in our template app as well as in Supabase. This is like a Postgres thing that allows you to have policies that sit on top of your tables to prevent the wrong entry or update or access of data. So the RLS is built in to everything that we do here, into all of our tables. And I'll show you what it looks like. So here we say create policy on public machines for update using isPlanner. So what this is a function called isPlanner, returns a true or false. It'll look at my permissions and it'll say, is this user a planner? True or false? If true, then it'll allow me to update this field or delete objects from this field or what have you. So those policies weren't in place when we created this file originally, and that's why we're not seeing the results that we need to. What we want to do in that case is run now a migration diff to make these changes live in the database. And actually it looks like cursor already did for us, which is so cool. All I have to hit is yes. And now on the right hand side, when I hit create, I can now create machine demand. So now let's create machine demand for March is 2000. And then machine demand for, it looks like April didn't save. So let's go back to custom months. We'll create April. Now again, this isn't exactly how I'd solve this problem. I just want to show you how easy it is to create interfaces and how easy it is to work with it. As long as you can learn enough about the system to push through some of the challenging spots, then you'll see that this is very workable and pretty cool now that I can build this kind of an app. All right, I've got my custom month. I've got machine demand for machine 1. Now let's do it for 2. And I'm going to set the numbers totally different. So we'll start with 500. Machine 2 March will be 750. And machine 2 April will be 1200. That's really based on the stuff that we've got, right? So we've got items that we need to manufacture at a certain time, certain orders that are due in certain months. That's going to create this demand. So we calculate that demand at the monthly level by machine, and each machine can produce different parts. So we're going to kind of schedule it out. And now we can see a certain number of hours per month per machine. So we've got all of our master data exactly how we would want. Now we need to go plan out how many crews do we need for each month. And what's cool about this is now we've got scenarios, right? In this case, we're going to create a scenario where we have 2 crews per month. Now, what you can see here is now we've got all the data exactly the way that we want, but we're not seeing the result that we need. So now we're just going to talk plainly to cursor for the scenario page. Assume one crew can work 6 hours per day in a month, per, let's say, per business day in a month. Calculate the available crew hours by multiplying crews times business days times 6. I think this is so cool because it's almost been an hour and now we have almost a working prototype. What's cool is I'm going to go to my client with this and just say, hey, how about we go, instead of no code, low code, how about we go custom code? You can have access to the code. I'll deploy it into Vercel and Superbase for $20 a month total. And this will now get us a 99 to 100% solution, whereas in those no code, low code apps, we were going to be stuck with maybe a 40 or 50% solution. It was unworkable. It wasn't something that we could continue with. All right. Now this created a function or updated a function called machine capacity view. I think what's happening is that we don't have any business days in our database. And so, yeah, there's none here. So, I'm going to ask it to create a script to populate the business days table with a list of days for 2025. Weekends are not business days. Okay. So instead of running this database migration, because I don't know if that's going to be very helpful right now. What we need to do is we need to have business days in our data table, and that's going to get us that calculation. So you see here when it says available 0 hours, we actually want to edit that so that it says the number of hours that we have available in each month. What we should see is something like, assume there's 20 business days in a month times 2 crews times 6 hours per day, we'd see like 240 hours available. That's what I would expect to see there when I hit the 2 on this crew planning. What's neat is then as a follow-on to this, what we're going to do is have an ideal scenario planner that just says, based on the backlog and the demand for each month, calculate the desired number of crews that we should plan for each month in order to stay up to date and deliver on time in full. All right, so it looks like we have a SQL script, a Node.js script to run that SQL script, and now we even have a package.json script to run the node file, which then executes the SQL file. Kind of wild, but that's okay. This is going to work for us. And this could be something that we could use, every year when we need to pre-populate all of our dates. We'll, put something in the interface that helps us build this out. Because this is that master data management where we're just updating lots of reference data. It's kind of painful, so it's good to try to automate that process as much as possible. Typically, what I've seen is that companies will have Excel lookup tables that have, the date calendar the business days, maybe the holidays. They're using that network days function in Excel, those sorts of things. It's kind of painful, right? Because then somebody makes a copy of that file and now everybody's referencing different files. It becomes really awful. So what this does is it allows us to have a single repository for that data. And then maybe we mirror this data into our data warehouse, or we pull it from here, from the data warehouse into this file, either way. Okay, it looks like now we have a workable script. So we're just going to run this script and see if we can get some data. It says cannot find module source services. That's probably because of where the file is at. Where's the file at? In the scripts folder? Yes. So it's probably, where's it? Can find module. I don't even know why it's calling that file. Here, you know what I can do? Because I'm not going to worry about that right now. I don't like to bore you with the ugly side of all of this, though there is an ugly side to it, which is just the slog. I'm just going to copy this into the SQL editor in Supabase and run it, and see if we can get it to run. Argument of case when must not return a set, line 15. Case when extract from generate series. All right, so I'm just going to tell it, hey, fix this part of the SQL script. It's going to fix that part of the script, and then we'll rerun it. Basically, once we have our business days, then we're going to be looking good here. Right. There we go. All right, so now we have business days. Let's take a look at that data. There it is. We've got business day, true, 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 false, false, true, 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 false, false, and so on. So this is awesome. This is exactly what we want. Um, it doesn't have a reference custom month for every month, custom month ID, but we'll see if that matters in our calculations. Yeah, it looks like it might need to. So let's see if we can just copy and paste that just to make life a little easier on ourselves. So we're just going to say the first one is February. Now, can I copy that and paste for all of February? This is always the issue of doing demos on the fly. Here, let me see if maybe I can just copy a few of these just so that we can see what it is that we're trying to build. All right. So there's February. Now let's go to March. Let's associate some of our March ones. Now, again, this is probably a little confusing. What's happening here is that we have a relationship between our business days and the custom months table. I don't think that's ideal. I would probably ask, we'll go back to the tool and ask it like, hey, this isn't how we want this to be set up. Let's fix it. And um, use a different relationship here, or only have a single date table would probably be ideal, and keep all of the data like custom month name, custom month groupings, as well as the business day true false kind of value in the same table. All right, but in any case, now that we have all the data in the right spot, do we have a value? We still don't have a value. All right, um, so what we're gonna do then is say, let's take a look. There's an error. Is the error related? No. Okay, so we're gonna keep pushing here just a little bit longer, see if we can get this to actually work the way that we want it to. I'm just gonna tell Cursor the problem we're having. So true hours available shows as 0 in the scenario page. Why? Even if I increase this, I'm still seeing 0. The capacity calculation depends on business days being assigned to custom months, but we haven't assigned the business days in custom months. Let me check the current state and fix this. The issue is in the capacity calculation. It's looking for business days that are assigned to a specific custom month, but if no business days are assigned, the count will be 0. Let me check the current capacity view and fix this. The current capacity calculation is looking for business days that have a custom month ID assigned, but when we populate business days, they don't have custom months assigned yet. Okay, yep, we already heard that. It's going to run this diff, and let's see. It's going to create a new migration. Oh, there we go. I see. So it's not. It's the problem is it's not. It's not recalculating constantly. So we need to recalculate um, when the user changes the number, not after a save. Okay, so it's basically only running that function when someone hits the save button. But we don't want that, right? We want this to be more dynamic than that. So this is, I would say, 70%, a 70% solution. Now, the next thing I need to do is see a cumulative sum. So, for example, in the month of February, when I have a deficit of 400 hours, I need that now to show in March, right? Actually, here, maybe it does. I'm going the wrong way. So, in this case, yeah, so when we have a deficit, we want it to then roll over, right? So we want a deficit in available hours to roll over to the next month, like a rolling sum. Yep, see now, see that calculation is changing as I change this number, which is awesome. And now we want to implement a rolling deficit system when if a machine. Okay, so you get the idea here. Now we're starting to see like the results of what we're looking for. We can even see the rollover number of hours. This is so cool. This is exactly what we're looking for. So this is great. There's even additional metrics. Okay, cool. So what we would do next is go through and say, hey, this interface, maybe that, I want to structure this a little bit differently. And I do. I'd like to have different columns and maybe see the months down below and the machines up top. That would be a good way to do this. And have some, or filter to a machine up top, or group by machine, something that separates machines and then the months to be able to see, okay, for this machine, what do the crews look like? So that's one thing I would want to change the layout. I also want to change how things are saved, how they're persisted, how are they refreshed or shown. But this is my proof of concept now. I can go to a client within an hour and 10 minutes. I have a new app. I have a proof of concept on my data. And then I can go through and say, hey, you want me to implement this? I got to connect the back end. I have to do some more work, but I'm now ready to move forward. So I think this is so cool. I love this interface too. This is a nice way to do it. Though I would really, everybody loves Excel. We'll probably just turn it into a table with all the different columns and then use, but I love these little indicators, the plus and minus, the whole thing. Everything here that Cursor does automatically is really nice. And those are nice touches to make it look very professional. So, so this is our demo. What I always do at the end of a session working with Cursor is typically I'll open up a new tab. I'll go to O3 and plan or ask mode, and I'll say review the latest changes We can always then go at, and there is recent changes in cursor, so it'll pull in all of the recent changes as context. Say review the latest changes and critique. And there's always things I want to critique. Architecture, calculations, interface, and then also look for duplication or unused code. Now it's going to scan all of those different files that we made changes of before we commit this and actually deploy it. We want to make sure that this is that this is well architected, that it's secure. We can also throw security in there as a prompt. We want it to review our latest row level security changes, all of that stuff. All right, so those are the changes. This is how you get started with this template app. I think it has a ton of power and will really bring a lot to any company. Once you get familiar with this, then the sky is the limit. So go ahead and send me a message, DM me if you want access to the repository so that you can start working with this. If you need help with it, let me know. I'd love to hop on a call and just make sure that you can actually load and run everything properly. I really thank you for your time. Thanks for checking out this stream. I will continue to do more of these if people find them useful. Learning how to work with Cursor, how to be an internal tool developer for your company. I think that there's just so much power here for any company. And as an individual, these are great skills to learn. So thanks again. God bless and have a great night.